What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have an EPIC Crobat plus Darkrai EX plus Arceus EX deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build, which you can see on the left hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually, and I'll talk about why all of these cards combined make an awesome deck. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. For more Pokemon TCG content, I do a bunch of other video games, so feel free to check those out as well. Without further ado, let's talk about the deck, and of course, let's start with the Pokemon. Of course, for this deck, I have the Crobat line, so I have Zubat. There are a couple of Zubats in the game. I just go with the one that has Bite for 1 Dark Energy, dealing 20 damage. Then I upgrade to Golbat with Wing Attack for 40. And finally, Crobat with its 1 move for 1 energy, dealing 50 damage. But it does have an ability as well. And this ability is awesome, and it pairs really well with Arceus. Of course, that's why I need Arceus in the deck. Although Arceus is a good Pokemon as well, you have Crobat with its ability, Cunning Link. And Cunning Link, once during your turn, if you have Arceus or Arceus EX in play, you may do 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So that is absolutely awesome when paired up with an Arceus or an Arceus EX. In this deck, I go with Arceus EX. And Arceus EX is great in this deck for several reasons. One, can deal a lot of damage. If you've utilized Arceus before, you know that its move for 3 energy deals 70 damage. Of course, this is enhanced depending upon how many benched Pokemon you have. The attack deals 20 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon. So, initial 3 energy for 70. If you have 3 Pokemon on your bench, this is going to do an additional 60. So that'll be 130 damage. If you have 2 Pokemon on your bench, it's going to deal 110 damage. If you have 1 Pokemon on your bench, it's going to deal 90 damage. So of course, you're going to try to get that 130 damage. If you are able to get 3 Pokemon on your bench, you're going to be dealing 130 damage. So that's absolutely awesome. Now imagine this, you have your Arceus in the slot, 3 Pokemon on your bench, so you're going to be able to deal 130 damage. Combine that with your Crobat on the bench, you could deal an extra 30 damage, so now you're up to 160 damage. But wait, there is of course more, and let's get into our Darkrai. Now Darkrai is not a hidden Pokemon at this point. Darkrai has been in the game for a little bit and is really one of the meta Pokemon. Darkrai is extremely versatile and can be in a lot of different decks. We've seen Darkrai EX plus Weevil EX tear up the game and is still tearing up the game. I just came out with a deck, Darkrai EX plus Leafeon EX. And that deck is extremely powerful and great. I do recommend checking that out after this video, as Darkrai EX plus Leafeon EX is an extremely awesome and fun deck as well. Well, Darkrai in this deck is awesome as well. So of course, it has Dark Prism, which is 3 energy for 80 damage. Of course, we are utilizing Dark Energy, so really the energy doesn't matter. Arceus EX has the 3 colorless energy, so you can utilize Dark on that. Crobat is 1 Dark Energy, and then, of course, Darkrai EX is 2 Dark Energy, 1 colorless energy for your 80 damage. But that's not the best part of Darkrai EX. For those of you who don't know, Whenever you attach a darkness energy from your energy zone to this Pokemon, Darkrai EX, you do 20 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So of course, you're going to have to build up a decent amount of energy. But if you have Crobat on the bench and Darkrai EX on the bench, and you have your Arceus EX in the active slot, and you have one other Pokemon on your bench, you're going to have 130 damage from your Arceus EX if your Arceus does have all 3 energy. You can deal an additional 30 damage from your Crobat, so that's 160 damage. And then, again, assuming you have 3 energy on your Arceus EX, you can put a dark energy on your Darkrai EX and deal an additional 20 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So you can deal up to 180 damage in one attack or one round for yourself with this combination. It is absolutely awesome to have. Now, if you are not able to get that combination, you still are able to deal a ton of damage with the Pokemon in this deck. If you have Crobat in the active slot with 1 dark energy equipped to him and Arceus EX on the bench, you can deal the 30 damage from Crobat's ability since Arceus EX is in play, plus equipping a dark energy on Darkrai EX, so that's another 20, so that's 50 damage, and then another 50 from Crobat's attack, so that's 100 damage. Let's say you have an Arceus on the bench, your Crobat on the bench, and your Darkrai EX in the active slot. So now, if you have 3 energy equipped on your Darkrai, you can add another energy, dealing 20 damage, plus 30 damage from your Crobat, plus 80 damage from your Dark Prism of your Darkrai EX. So that's now 130 damage with that combination. So there are a lot of ways with these Pokemon that you can deal a lot of damage. This was one of the first decks that I thought of, one of the first combinations that I thought of when I saw the announcement of the Arceus EX deck with Crobat and Crobat's ability that allows you to deal 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon when Arceus EX is in play. So this is an absolutely cool and fun combination, and you have many ways to deal a lot of damage. You don't just have one combination in which you can deal a lot of damage. You have a lot of different combinations here that you can deal a lot of damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now let's talk about the support cards in this Crobat Arceus EX Darkrai EX deck. 2 of the staples that almost every deck has right now: Professor's Research, which allows you to draw 2 cards, and Pokeball, which allows you to draw a basic Pokemon from your deck. Of course, both of these combined allow you to get to Pokemon in your deck quicker. Pokeball can allow you to draw that Arceus EX that you need, or your Darkrai EX that you need. It could also allow you to draw a Zubat that you may need. Professor's Research is just going to allow you to get to more cards quickly, whether it's a Pokemon card that you may want, whether it's a support card that you want to have in your hand for later in the game. Professor's Research is going to help you get there. So those 2 cards are very important, really, in every deck. Next, another almost staple of every deck at this point is Cyrus, and I have 2 of them, just like I have 2 of Professor's Research and 2 of the Pokeballs. Cyrus is going to allow you, if there is a Pokemon on your opponent's bench that's injured, to draw out that Pokemon into the active slot and damage it, or kill it if it is weakened enough, as you can see in the clip right here, where I'm able to pull out that Pidgey from my opponent's bench, put it into the active slot, and finish it off to win the game. Cyrus is a great way to make sure your opponent can't hide weakened Pokemon on the bench, especially because this deck combination can deal a lot of easy damage, like Crobat dealing its 30, Darkrai dealing 20 if you equip an energy, a lot of easy damage before you even have to attack and give up your turn. Cyrus is even more important to that. So if there's a really weakened Pokemon, you can finish them off like the Pidgeotty with only 10 HP left, and if that wasn't the end of the game, the opponent would be forced to put a Pokemon in that active slot in which I could deal even more damage to that Pokemon. So that's a great combination for Cyrus in this deck with these Pokemon who deal non-attack damage. Now, a couple of extra cards that I like to have in the deck, and you can kind of play around with these. I have one Potion, one Giant Cape, and one Rocky Helm. Each of these have a spot in this deck, although if you want to get rid of one and add an extra of another, that's perfectly okay too, because each of them have their positions inside of this deck. Potion can be nice to heal nasty damage from a Rocky Helm, from a Druddigon, or from a weak Pokemon, a basic Pokemon that deals 20 or 10 damage early on. So sometimes it's nice to have that potion ready. Giant Cape, of course, can help increase the HP of a couple of our strong Pokemon, Darkrai and Arceus, above breaking points of Pokemon's attacks. There are a lot of EX Pokemon that deal a lot of damage. Let's say you're facing an opponent that has an Arceus EX plus a Giovanni, that's going to deal 140. So if I have a Giant Cape on my Darkrai EX, I'm going to make sure that I don't get finished off in one hit. Rocky Helm is another nice tool to have. You're going to be dealing an extra 20 damage to an opponent if they choose to attack you. So we already talked about Arceus EX plus 3 energy and a full bench is going to deal 130 damage. Plus the Crobat is going to deal 160. Plus adding an energy on our Darkrai is going to deal 180. Well, if you have a Rocky Helm and the opponent does want to attack, if for some reason, somehow that opponent is able to outlast all of that attack, well, then they're going to have to deal with a Rocky Helm dealing an additional 20 damage. And there aren't many Pokemon in the game that can survive all of that damage. So it's nice to have. It's also nice to weaken Pokemon because, of course, again, there's Cyrus in this deck. So if you weaken a Pokemon and your opponent puts that Pokemon on the bench, it's going to be that much easier to draw out that Pokemon. Sabrina, I have one of Sabrina. I found that Sabrina is still a nice card to have. Even though Cyrus, I like having over Sabrina, in which I can pull out weakened Pokemon, there have been a lot of matches in which I'm facing an enemy that has one Pokemon in the active slot and one Pokemon on the bench, or a Pokemon in the active slot that has a Rocky Helm on. So I like to utilize Sabrina to avoid some of that. Maybe I want to avoid a Rocky Helm. So Sabrina is nice to get the Pokemon with a Rocky Helm out of that active slot so I don't have to deal with that additional 20 damage. Sometimes Sabrina is nice because there's a strong Pokemon in the active slot and a weaker Pokemon on the bench. So sometimes I like to get to that weaker Pokemon because the opponent only played 2 cards, so I like to do that. This is the deck, and I absolutely love it. This combination of Pokemon is so fun to use. Crobat plus Darkrai EX plus Arceus EX is really fun, and I've won a lot of matches with it. It is definitely a fun deck. It does take a little bit longer to set up because, of course, you need so many Pokemon. You need to evolve all the way to your Crobat. You need your Arceus, and then you need your Darkrai. So it does involve getting a lot of Pokemon into your hand, but it is really fun. And at the end of the day, you really don't need all 3 of these Pokemon at once to win the match. Darkrai is extremely powerful on his own. Of course, Arceus is also really powerful. You do need a full bench for Arceus, but you have 10 Pokemon in this game, so you can get your Pokemon at least and your bench filled so Arceus can do 130 damage. And then you adding energy to Darkrai, and that's 150 damage. So that's a decent amount of damage as well, even without the Crobat. So it's still a really powerful deck setup, even if you don't get all 3 of these Pokemon set up. It's really fun, and I recommend checking this out. Y'all are gonna love it. Let me know in the comments section if you've tried a combination like this and how much you enjoy it. If you haven't tried this out, are you going to try it out now? Let me know in the comments section. Let me know what some of your favorite deck combinations are. I'd love to hear them. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and until next time, peace.